From a young age, Devin Emke was fascinated by sound. The Louisville native carried that fascination from bands in high school to college in New York, where he studied music, and now to his job at Saturday Night Live, where he serves as audio post-production engineer, working on everything from the show's commercial parodies to their iconic digital shorts. I recently met Emke in New York to chat about what it's like to ply his trade at one of the biggest shows on TV.
On a SNL show day, this is just an absolute zoo of activity. Actually, the area just outside Mix 3 where I work is the staging area for live animals. Sometimes I'll actually have to trip over a llama, or we had a live camel there a few weeks ago.
Oh my God. So you started here in 2006.
The fall of 2006 was my first year here. Yes.
Which is right around the time when Andy Samberg and those guys, those digital shorts were really exploding. It's a huge part of the show.
So Andy Samberg came in the fall of 2005. He was there 1 year, and he came to the show as a trio of writers called The Lonely Island. The whole digital short thing, as you said, that's like the first big viral video on YouTube was Lazy Sunday.
Lazy Sunday, wake up in the late afternoon. Call Parnell just to see how he's doing. Hello.
So I came to SNL right when really the most talked about and the most buzz-worthy parts of the show were these pre-recorded parts. That's what I really work on for the live show. So it's been an exciting time to be part of the show, specifically working on those type of pieces. This whole area are little private cabanas for cast members to change.
Okay.
Yes, the whole row on the other side as well. We are cramming all this work in right before dress. It airs before the dress audience, and it is in that little window, between 10 and 11:30, that little 90-minute corridor of time where we, not just me, but the whole staff has to figure out what didn't work for dress and what to cut.
And people may not think about the sound design of these things. They may think that they just record it and whatever they get is the sound, but once that's done, you come in here and you do everything that we're hearing on TV. You have touched in some way, shape, or form.
Very often when you go out and shoot something, the only sound that you are recording that is sometimes usable and not always usable is the dialogue. They may be shooting a piece at the beach or in the rain or on a city street or any number of things that may present challenges for me in making that dialogue usable. We're adding all kinds of sound design, music score. Sometimes it is like original score music that's been written for the piece. You would often see that like in a music video, where we have composers here on the staff who write music for those things, or we're using music from an outside source. You hear music in the piece like that's supposed to be playing on a PA system, or at a party, or at a department store. You hear it like Muzak on the loudspeakers. So all of that kind of has to be worked into the mix and sitting in the right place, and sound authentic. And really, that's a big part of what the job is. Current, headshots of the current cast. In fact, there's a picture of John Mulaney dressed as Patti Smith.
Oh yeah, that's pretty dead on.
Right.
And your work has to make it, for one, sound good, but the sound is also in service of the comedy.
Yes.
In the bit.
Yes.
So can you describe that process? How you always have to keep the funny in your head.
One thing I often think about is what I'm doing here is a very small piece of a giant puzzle and a giant machine. And at the end of the day, the most critical job of anyone here are the writers. We can make it sound as good as we want. We can do all kinds of incredible visual effects, but if it's not a funny idea, it's not a funny idea. And timing is everything in comedy. I mean, that's what everybody says. The pacing of how you're delivering the comedy is so critical to how it gets received. And that trickles down to what we do in this room, just as how we sort of subtly do, or not so subtly, like hit you over the head with a giant sound effect or a huge booming piece of music if it's part of the joke,
Emke attended St. Francis High School in downtown Louisville, then headed east in 1988 to study music at NYU and pursue his dream of being a musician.
Every audio engineer in the world, without fail, is a frustrated musician. it really almost always is born out of being a music appreciator. But from a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be involved with music and had aspirations to be a musician professionally. And it became clear sort of in my early adulthood that this was probably not a sustainable, practical idea. And I sort of found my place on the other side of the glass, as we say, you know, the musicians on one side of the glass and I'm on the other. But it always starts out as really just a fascination with music and recorded sound.
For over a decade, he worked in the music industry before transitioning to post-production and landing his job at SNL right when the digital short revolution was taking off. So this is it. Everybody says this, but it is smaller than you would think.
Yes, it is. The host will come out here and deliver the monologue right from this perch.
You've worked on so many of these digital shorts, pre-produced things since 2006.
Yes.
A lot of them are really, really well known. They're what stick out a lot to the audience. Are there any that stick out to you that you just loved working on?
It was actually during my first season here, which would have been the second season with the Lonely Island guys. We did this piece. It was early in my first season. I had been in this room for a short period of time and was really thrown into the deep end of the water.
Girl, you know we've been together such a long, long time.
Justin Timberlake came in here and we did vocal overdubs of that piece right here in this room. And so that sticks out of my memory as just being like, okay, I really need to focus and really be able to do this.
That's like kind of lowbrow, sophomoric humor, but
Yes.
with like really high quality music.
Yeah, it's a music video.
It sounds like an actual album you'd hear
Yes.
on the
And
radio.
it's so, you know, the Lonely Island guys, they were incredibly adept and still are at like creating, you know, what they're trying to do is make a mockery of like early 90s R&B,
Right.
you know, smooth love song kind of a thing. And it was so perfectly executed to kind of capture that look and that sound, the sound of the track. There's been maybe a few pieces where we had maybe a greater opportunity to really experiment with sound design. It was a piece where a cast member, Beck Bennett, was on his cell phone with Kyle Mooney. And the whole gag was that Beck was trying to meet Kyle at a party.
Yo, where's everybody at?
Oh, snap. Sorry, homie. We just went upstairs to the VIP area.
And they were talking on the phone like, oh yeah, we're at this bar on some street. And he would go there and they weren't there.
So, yeah, the whole crew went to this underground speakeasy spot.
Okay, great.
So just walk out the bar?
And from a sound design, it's like Beck Bennett's out on the street, and it's constantly these cuts between him on his phone, hearing Kyle through his phone, and then going to Kyle talking to Beck. It was a lot of very complex editing of the location of the perspective of the person who you see in the shot and the perspective of who you hear on the phone, coupled with the fact that they're going to all these clubs, there's music blaring. We had to, you know, we take the music and we sort of treat it to make it sound like it's coming over a PA system. Sound design of the out street, and it eventually got to this place where Beck Bennett goes to this like netherworld of like an entirely blank.
All right, so now are you in sort of a white void, infinite space area?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect.
And that really sticks out in my eyes where it was really an opportunity to really have fun with kind of like the soundscape.
Right. Flex your creative muscles.
Yes, and that's a recent one that really sticks out.
Have you had bands that you're particularly fond of as musical guests?
Yeah. In fact, Paul McCartney, I was working in Mix 1 with the main music mixer when Paul McCartney's here, and we recorded him doing a flute solo. It was for a digital short, in fact. And I really, to this day, feel very much informed by having grown up in Louisville. I think you know, there's a different way about living in a southern city versus, you know, a big city on one of the coasts. And I'm just very grateful for having spent time there. And I really, to this day, I really think it very much informs who I am. And I look back very fondly on having lived there. I think a lot about Louisville and really feel very fortunate to have grown up there and really had. It's really made a really indelible part on how I feel like I conduct myself as an adult.
Well, you've been here 13 years.
Correct.
14 seasons.
I guess this is my 14th season. Yeah.
What is it like for you to work at such an iconic, like this show is an institution
Yeah.
in our country's popular culture. Does that wear off for you at any point, or is it still exciting?
It's still exciting. I think I maybe sometimes forget that it's. I think the show has had these sort of ebbs and flows of cultural relevance, and we're living in a time. The show and everything we're doing here is maybe really culturally relevant right now, and it's really exciting to be a part of something that's everybody's talking about and everybody's sharing online, and being part of that is really pretty cool, actually.
You're in the mix every week.
Literally, the mix.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. My sincere thanks to Devin Emke and all the folks at Saturday Night Live for having us at Rockefeller Center. We had a blast. To see more of my conversation with Emke, including more from our walk around the studio and why sound design is a bigger part of your life than you may think, check out our web extras on WHAS11.com.